Howdy. We're going to try that again. Howdy. All right, folks, we're about 5 minutes out from starting the panel. I'd just like to ask you to wrap up your conversations and start finding a seat. That includes competitors. Yes, you can abandon your booth for just a little bit. Come have a seat in the chairs up here from the front back. Folks, please do take a seat. We're about to get started with the panel. For those of you moving slow, now you get a special ask. I want y'all to fill from the front back. There's a legit reason for asking that. It really makes for a lot better photos. Howdy.
Howdy.
So I know folks still getting drinks and stuff, no problem. Please do come on up and sit down. I do want to get started though because I want to be respectful of everyone's time, make sure we got maximum time at the distillery later. So just real quick, because we've had some new folks join us, we did just wrap up our facilitated networking. I want to say thank you again to all of the prize sponsors and the competitors that participated in that. I'm Chris Scotti, for those of you who haven't met in person yet. Most of you guys I have met in one form or fashion. Sometimes, for some of you, it's the first time that's not behind a screen. As far as what's going on today, we started at 2 o'clock with that facilitated networking. We're about to get started with our Entrepreneurial Perspectives panel, and then we'll be retiring to the welcome reception at Hush and Whisper Distillery. I'll explain a little bit more about the transportation options for that here shortly. I wanted to remind everyone one more time to download the app or at least get connected to the Wi-Fi. We are going to do the panel questions and curate them digitally via Slido. So we'll put a QR code up on the screen shortly. The app is a good way to communicate with your fellow competitors and sponsors and the other investor attendees tomorrow. So we do highly encourage you download that and at least put in some basics into your profile. The Wi-Fi is just 12th man. It's open, so just connect to it. And I'll display actually, the link's already up. They beat me to it. You can see that link here in a sec. Would you put the panelist stuff up there for... Yeah, there you go. So we're about to start our moderated panel, and I want to explain the reason why we do this. We've been doing TNVC, the Texas A&M New Venture Competition now. We've had 10 completed years. This is our 11th year. So on about year 3, we decided to start inviting back some of our prior finalists that had some type of success milestone, whether that's a product to market, maybe a major round, and we tried to spread it out as the years went on to have early to more recent competitors, to, finalists to come back and speak to you. And this is not just to the competitors in the room also. We record this and have invited researchers, the future generation of entrepreneurs that might be thinking about taking their technology out of the lab into the market along a similar pathway that many of you have followed. So I want to thank all of you, of course, for being here today, but also to thank the folks that join and watch this online. We actually are streaming it live or watching it via recording later. It's our intent to use this to impart the knowledge of past folks that have been successful onto the new generation of today's competitors and those researchers. So enough about the background. Let's chat real quick about our panelists. We're joined today by Joanna Hsu to my immediate right. She was last year's finalist, took away a big chunk of money, so 2024 finalist. Then we've got Dan Powell, Spark Biomedical, who's going to tell you a little bit about some of the awesome things that have happened since he competed in 2019. And then Jim Smith, who actually won in our inaugural year in 2015, that's going to tell you about his company, Sano Chemical. We are going to allow, for a few questions that I've already got pre-planned, but I really want to rely mostly on the audience and the questions that you'd like to hear answered. So please, submit questions, vote them up and down using Slido. And I'm going to pull the Slido now, thank you. And I really want to allow the audience to direct this mostly. We'll be able to see the questions coming in up here. I'll try to filter them as they come in, and would just ask you guys to please participate. This is not just us talking at you. So we're going to start out with something fun. Back when we started, I think we did an elevator pitch competition back in 2015, didn't we, Jim? All right. Probably been a few years since you did an elevator pitch, though. I asked these guys to give their best version of the elevator pitch, which I know all of you competitors have completely polished now and ready to go for tomorrow, right? All right. So who wants to go first? Give us your latest elevator pitch.
Is the mic, okay, the mic's working good. All right, well, Sano Chemicals, its name was derived from the fact that Sano means health in Latin, and chemicals, we're looking for novel new chemicals. We believe that to be able to make major changes in therapeutic development requires new chemical entities and not working with the same old classes of compounds. We're primarily focused in developing new chemicals for the treatment of infectious diseases. If you talk to a doctor, they will tell you that there are other leading causes of death, but the leading cause of a horrible death is an infectious disease, and that has not changed. So we are looking at trying to develop new compounds with completely new mechanisms of actions to be able to treat infectious diseases and to be able to kind of make changes in the outcome of these types of infections. Infectious diseases could be very, very serious, causing death, and there are a lot of infectious diseases that are just serious diseases, pose chronic conditions. One of these chronic conditions is a disease called recurrent vulvovaginal candidiasis, and this is a disease that affects upward to 9 million women in the United States. This is 3 or more vaginal yeast infections per year. This is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. We're currently finished phase 1 clinical trials. We're planning on being in phase 2 clinical trials this fall with our proof of concept data. I would really love an opportunity to discuss our opportunity with you more. Do you have some additional time on your schedule to talk further?
I forgot to start the clock. Good job.
Thank you.
Dan, you want to go next?
Absolutely. We'll save the best for last.
Yeah.
I'm Daniel Powell. I'm the CEO of Spark Biomedical. We originated as a medical device company, and when we originally pitched here back in 2019, we were in clinical trials with a wearable auricular transcutaneous neurostimulator. That's a lot of words for we stick electrodes on your ear and stimulate your vagus and trigeminal nerve. And we are now, since then, FDA cleared and on market to treat opioid withdrawal. What this looks like is you can take somebody detoxing cold turkey from street fentanyl and bring them completely or near completely out of withdrawal with a 1 hour with 1 hour stimulation, and then they wear the device around the clock. I'm proud to say since then we also have completed a clinical trial in newborn babies born dependent on opioids. That will go to the FDA in Q3. And amongst all these other initiatives, we have discovered a new application in a completely different area of women's health, specifically menstrual health, where daily use during menstruation reduces blood loss, improves pain, and improves mood with non-hormonal treatment. We pre-launched a website to sell this as a wellness device last week called ohmbody.com, OHM, which is a measurement of electrical stimulation in body. So we're really excited. So we now are straddling both official medical device business and a wellness business.
Thanks, Dan.
And
Good
I just
job.
finished closing my Series X. So
Oh, yeah. That little minor thing. I'll give you a chance to talk about that in a second. Joanna, you're up.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Joanna Shu. I'm co-founder and CEO of Freezin' It, but we're changing our name. So I competed as Freezin' It. We're now Cartwheel. We had to we think of Freezin' It was sort of our starter home, right? And it wasn't big enough to encompass more than one product. So by Cartwheel, okay, we can now branch out into other areas of first aid. But we started with lice treatment because there's 17, well, it's gross, right? It's disgusting. And there's 17 million cases of head lice per year in the United States. And the products that are available on the market are less than 50% effective. So you go to the store, you know, Walgreens, CVS, whatever's on the shelf, it's like a coin toss if it's going to work or not. And it's full of, you know, pesticides or synthetic chemicals that a lot of parents nowadays would rather avoid. And so we started with one medical device, freezing the nits. We found that it worked, but from a business standpoint, it was actually better to make a warm CO2 device. And so that's what we're pursuing. The data's even better. We're using much less CO2, but that obviously doesn't work with the company name, Freezin' It. So we had to change. And then we also licensed another product, an OTC lice treatment gel, which was 95.8% effective in clinical trials. And it's all natural ingredients like diatomaceous earth, so mild abrasives. And it shreds the lice. It's really gross. So I have a really gross job, but it's a lot of fun. So, and yeah, that's it.
And if they were competing tomorrow, we'd all vote for them in the People's Choice, right? So let's kick off with just catching us up with how things have gone. Tell us about some major milestones that might have occurred since you competed. Who'd like to take that one? I know you're a little proud, Dan.
Yeah, well, no, we've had a lot. I mean, we have both pivots and successes. I think the journey was very surprising how difficult the addiction business was. In the U.S., you have a very perverse incentive that you don't really, if you're a for-profit rehab center, the worst thing that could happen is your patient gets well. So it's been a brutal road that we were like, what do you mean you don't just magically want our product? So that's created some of these pivots, though, that have been very, very exciting. We think the neonatal product, getting that clinical trial to the finish line is huge. Getting our blood loss application that we licensed out of Northwell is huge. And then closing a $15 million Series A at the beginning of this year was fantastic. And you might think, hey, that's great. I opened a convertible note yesterday, so because we need more money. But we've had it. It's been a good journey. Being part of this community has been fantastic, and so love getting to come back and be a part of this. It's special.
No. Thanks, Dan.
I'll go next. So developing a therapeutic, there's a lot of milestones that kind of internally go on that nobody else can actually understand what you're doing. There's a lot of processes in developing what's called chemistry manufacturing control, so you can make the product the same way every time, which is required by the FDA. But that's kind of hard to translate. So the ones that people kind of recognize are like investigational new drug application approvals, phase 1, phase 2. And these are kind of the milestones that have kind of really been kind of moving rapidly over the last couple of years. The first 8 years worth of work were just internal milestones like yeah, we can make the compound the same way every time. And that was a big milestone that we were able to accomplish. Milestones come from development, so we've had different successes with non-dilutive funding opportunities. So SBIRs, STTRs are getting money that way. They're always happy because that's doesn't affect your cap table at all, and you're like, yay, that's free money. But it still comes with a lot of work, and then other milestones, getting other people to believe in what you're doing. It is dilutive, but it's good to bring in some extra skill and other people into the company that kind of share your vision for what you're doing. So those are some great milestones as well.
Awesome. So they've had longer to get more milestones. So I've only had a year, but even in that year, we closed our pre-seed round. It was $500,000, and we licensed a new product, like I said. And what else did we do, Lisa? We had a pre-sub meeting with the FDA that was really positive. It was like a love fest, which is not what you think usually with the FDA. So that was great. And then we've got a bunch of great data coming back from our working prototype. So I mean, it's not 15 million, but it's okay.
It's great.
You get there.
You added a great
So I found a great board chair here at TNVC. So I heard Dan Powell. Can I do your commercial for you? Sure. So I met Dan Powell. I heard him speak at IC3. It's a conference in Dallas, and I was blown away. They're helping newborn babies get off opioids. Are you kidding me? That's like doing the Lord's work. Like, seriously. And so I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. But I was like, oh, I'm never going to see him again. And then I see him outside the elevators at the hotel, and I was like, hi, my name's Joanna. And he jumped back, like, he physically recoiled from my fangirling. Oh, if you'd had security, you would have called them on me. But then anyway, after, then the next day, I pitched to his room, and he had grumpy face on the whole time. You were like this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing terrible. He hates me. And then afterwards, he's like, oh, you did great. I'm like, oh, that's just, I guess, your face. And then afterwards, we got to talking. I was like, well, what do you think about being advisor? He's like, what do you think about being on the board? And I'm like, yeah, it didn't even occur to me that I could ask for that. And he's been amazing. And he breaks everything down for us just in really simple ways. And I run everything past him. So I don't remember what the question was, but that's the answer you're getting.
And you led perfect into the next one, because I want to talk about team a little bit here. And not just talking about employees, it's also about advisors and board members as well. And I'd like you to think back to the earliest parts of your company, Dan and Jim, talking about how you built a team around your early technology, maybe some lessons learned there, what worked and what didn't.
Sure. Yeah, I'll start there. Is that having a solid team is probably one of the biggest things that you can do. You're going to find that there are people that will say they can do things that really can't do things, or maybe if they can, they just don't have the initiative to do things, and you're going to have to realize this is business and learn how to basically move these people out quickly. You don't want to waste time on dead weight. And now, how do you find great people? And that's something. When you get a hold of somebody, you try to incentivize them and keep them incentivized and keep them working with you. We've been able to build an amazing team. We've got a chief medical officer that's got over 30 years of experience in designing clinical trials. We got individuals that have been working and developing chemistry, manufacturing controls, and GMP guidelines. And once you get these people, you got to hold on to them tight. So it is crucial. And I'll tell you the other thing too, when you're sitting down and you're trying to make a business deal, rarely does it have anything to do with your product. It's going to be about your team, and they're going to want to look at your team and make sure you can actually deliver what you're going to say. Your product actually comes second. So team is absolutely crucial.
I had a very once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I had no control over, and that was I had two amazing co-founders. I'm the business guy. I've always kind of been marketing, sales, strategy, and we met at another medical device company. But then one of my other partners is a neuroengineer, and the other one's a neurophysiologist, so they're both PhDs. So we had the scientist, the engineer, and the business guy, and we divided the business equally, and it's just been the most amazing journey. We trust each other completely. We work amazingly together, and It's just, I could not, it's not like I was back here orchestrating this, but I will say in that journey of yours, if you're a pure scientist, you need other skills that are just as motivated as you to get the product to market. And so I never had to worry about the science because Naveed was 100% dedicated. I didn't have to worry about the engineering. I was focused on the commercial side, reimbursement, those kind of things. And then we just slowly added really good talent. Everything you said I agree with. You know, you find good people, you treat them right, give them equity, or they earn equity. And then my only thing is never hire somebody with equity. That was the biggest mistake of my career. Somebody asked biggest mistake, I got a whole line of them. But you never get the talent you need with just equity. People need money to live. You got to pay them well, and they have to have a little piece of the pie for the big win.
That's a good point, Dan. Joanna, tell us a little bit about how you made your current team.
Yeah, so a lot of people we've started with just sort of advisor, kind of on the periphery, who start slow, because I've found it's really hard to go back once you realize you have somebody and you're like, oh, their skill set is not, maybe it's dated. Maybe, for example, they were great at PR, but 20 years ago, and it's like, shoot, well, now everything's influencers, et cetera, and maybe you really like them, but it's not, you know, but if you start with just, hey, let's just do some advising, and then it kind of slowly, you know, unfolds naturally. That's kind of been the best way. When we go all in, and it that hasn't worked as well.
Now, one of the things that I'm hearing, and I want to make sure your point is driven home, is that there's a diversity in the teams that you're building. I think you'd all agree in terms of experience. You've got to have both the business and the technical, the folks that have the Rolodex of potential partners and customers, all adding value. Quickly had a few questions flow to the top, so I want to go and take a couple audience questions. Thank you for submitting and for upvoting these. And I have to smile at the first one up there about answering a technical question, because I've harped on this to the competitors this year on trying to be able to answer technical questions in a brief amount of time, or to defer those when you only have a short period. And I don't know whether Dan asked you a technical question that one time outside the elevator, Joanna, but can you tell us if you had an experience where you've had someone asking you something technical where you've had to balance that with the amount of time you had, or any other tips along that line?
Yeah, I think I still struggle with that one, Chris. And so, I'm sometimes think I'm being as least technical as possible, and they look at me like, wow, that was very, very technical. So it is something that you have to work on. I've been told to think about that you're talking to your mother if she doesn't know how to do anything, and explaining it to your mother, and that's the level you should be trying to describe what you're doing. So yeah, it's a good question. And yeah.
I think part of the answer needs to be this: what are you solving? Actually, now that I read the question, I'm like, I really did a bad job on my pitch. Like, I didn't get to the so what first. I start talking about the vagal and trigeminal nerve. So I already messed that up today. But yeah, I think focusing on the solution, the problem you're solving is the key. And then if you're getting into the technical underpinnings, I know it's fun to go deep in it, but you gotta kind of know it so well. And one thing that really helps with that is write it out, and you'll go to it in your memory and you'll pluck the sentence out versus freestyling it, because freestyling is what always takes too long.
This is my favorite question, because I'm non-technical. So for me, I'm like, oh, this is what I can do all day, is be non-technical, because I don't know enough to, I don't have a science degree. My background is consumer products. And so people learn through story. So make a story or make it personal. So if I start talking to people about head lice, people don't want to admit it, but it's affected most families. Like 1 out of 3 kids get it at some point, right? So, and usually they'll open up and be like, oh yeah, my daughter got it at sleepaway camp, whatever. And then it's like, yes, that's your opening, right? And then you just go from there. And they're like, then I'm like, what'd you try? So I think story and making it personal is the best way.
And I'm going to follow up on one, Jim, not to pick on you, but I'm going to have to tell the audience here a piece of your story. This is actually Dr. Jim Smith. He's still currently serving as a faculty member at A&M. And I'll tell you, working with faculty and what my office does day to day, we struggle all the time with trying to help faculty to be able to tell a story around something that's very technical. How have you been able to balance that? I mean, you live the technical day to day, yet you've got to talk to investors and business people.
Yeah, it's really by bouncing what you're doing off other people. And I could say right now, in terms of pitch decks, it has been scaled back and back and back into where I don't even recognize it as far as what we're doing, but it's as least technical as you can possibly get. From my background, I give presentations, I give scientific talks, and that's what I think excites me. But it's really just telling a very simple story is what excites most people, and that's where I think we get lost into all the detail. But you really have to bounce it off people to kind of make sure you're hitting about the right level. And I can say it's always a changing story. So
Appreciate that, Jim. Dr. Smith. So we got another question here that's a good one. I'm gonna broaden it a little bit though, and that's how you balance your early stage budget between R&D and then all the other business expenses that you also have to manage to keep the company alive. So how do you advance the technical side and while balancing the legal costs and the day-to-day business expenses, including marketing?
yeah, something that you think about all the time is this term called burn rate. And you're looking at, what is your total cost per month and how much money do I got and how many months do I have? And there's times when you're kind of running dry and you're almost, out, and then all of a sudden you can get another influx and you keep on going. You got to modify it all the time. I would say, this is probably one of the things that kind of keep you awake most of the time, because you know that you need this certain piece of data, you need to get this done to be able to get to another inflection point to be able to raise money. So it's always just kind of chasing after, I got to get to the next milestone. If I get to the next milestone, I'm going to be where I'm going to need to be. And it happens. And if you just keep at it and you just keep working at it, and you can't just kind of, not think about it. It is something you're thinking about every minute of the day. Even if you get a lot of money in, like you just said, you raised $15 million, he realized that ain't enough. He's got to basically do more. It's a continuous feed to kind of get to where you got to go.
That's a good point. So it's not just about the day-to-day business, it's also balancing with fundraising as well.
Mm-hmm.
You said one of the most important words, and that's inflection points or milestones. Your fundraising strategy, and this will tie back, your fundraising strategy is about making progress. And you show up and need more money without any progress, and you have down rounds, you have flat rounds. You want to keep increasing value and valuation traditionally. And so I've definitely, someone also down the other questions, what's one of your biggest mistakes is we ran out of money, because I like to spend, and you can at least laugh a little at that. No, we hired too many, and we should have done more, kept more, bootstrapping a little bit more. So making that progress, making the milestones, I think, and worrying, you're right, you worry about it every day. And you'll want to invest more in other parts of the business, but you just got to know which pieces are critical for the milestone and for the overall success. Marketing's probably the least of your worries. Like, you might have to change your name within 1 year. So don't spend too much on the name at the beginning.
Totally.
Oh, but do trademark it or someone will steal it. That happened to our first product.
Ouch. Yeah, we're working on that right now. I think that's right, inflection points definitely, but I think also get a CFO, whether it's fractional or anything else. You cannot do the model that my fractional CFO, who's here, does. It is, I don't know how many spreadsheets, they're all linked. She's like, you're not allowed to, I'm not allowed to touch it. And so we meet all the time, every single expense. And I'm not a big spender, right? I mean, my background in my previous company was totally bootstrapped. We didn't raise any outside money, and so everything was cheap, cheap, cheap but not in a bad way, but conservative, I guess. And so, for example, we're exhibiting at the National Association of School Nurses to tell them about our awesome new product. And they're like, well, for this amount of money, we can do a mail drop, and they're gonna drop literature at every hotel room. I'm like, I can do that. I'll look where the bags are, and then I'll put my literature in there afterwards. I saved $1,000. And so being really scrappy, it doesn't make you less of an entrepreneur, it makes you an awesome entrepreneur, and you get cool stories like that. And I think my CFO, she's not a co-founder, but it feels like it. We work shoulder to shoulder every day. Dan said they're your right-hand woman or man. So, and I feel like Lisa is, so.
That's great, thank you. So this one's gotten floated up to the top quickly, and Dan, you already answered two, so we'll let the others go first while you're thinking of yet another failure. So since Jim or Joanna, since your win at TNVC, what do you feel like your biggest failure's been, and how did you rebound as a company?
I mean, we got stuck at some point raising money, and it was hard. And last year was really hard with the fundraising environment, sort of just uncertainty. Things are out of my control. So I would have loved to have raised a lot more early, get it done, so I could make some more inflection points and more movements. So I don't want to call it a failure, but actually I met a bunch of investors here, came on eventually. That was amazing, and there've been amazing people and additions to our advisory board, and so that's not really a failure. I'm not
struggling to raise money early on, I think,
and
is a very common failure point for companies.
So we won, but we're like, oh, we're going to raise $1 million. I'm like, let's make it $500,000, and then we're going to call it a win. So.
Well, there is such a thing as raising too much money too early as well. So.
I don't know about that.
Failure isn't something that I agree with her. You don't really want to apply any of your things as a failure, because it kind of leaves a kind of like a negative in your mind, and you can't allow that to kind of set in. There's setbacks, there's things that you want to get done, there's more you always want to do. And I think if you want to think in terms of what's a failure, it's like, I failed to develop every single drug product that I wanted to develop, but we had to focus on one, right? So you just gotta keep yourself on task, focus with what's the most important, and get to where you gotta go. But yeah, don't drag yourself down with terms like failure. Nah, it's just, if there's setbacks, you're moving forward. Just gotta keep moving forward.
Yeah, most of mine's around, spent too much money on consultants or did an initiative. Oh, implementing Salesforce.com. Do not do that. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. But yeah, ours was,
there goes them being a sponsor.
Yeah, sorry. Burning money too fast and running out and having to look my team in the eye and tell them I can't pay them. That sucked. That was the worst. We made sure we paid everybody who was not an executive, but when the top of the half doesn't get a paycheck for 4 months, it's not fun. We pulled through, and what did I do about it? You just buckle down and you just grind every morning. And then one day someone said, well, will you take $1 million? And it was just like my first time I got a check that big, and we were out of the hole, and have guarded against that situation ever since.
Thanks, Dan. I'm pretty sure at some point in this top upvoted question is the people in the audience messing with us, but I do think it was a serious question that came in real early while you were talking, Dr. Smith. Does this question actually make sense to you? How will your opioid treatment affect GERT prices compared to CIBAL prices? Actually, that was for Dan. I'm sorry, I didn't say Jim, but do you understand the question?
I don't. I have no idea.
I think it's somebody messing with us, and it's everybody else in the audience voting it up.
I think the Bulgarian fish one was better, though.
The Bulgarian, I was wondering.
Oh, that Bulgarian fish one. So, Han, wherever you are, we're not buying you a drink later. So,
What about the small?
Yeah.
The small.
Which one?
Number 3.
Oh, yeah. What's one decision you made early as a founder that felt small at the time, but ended up shaping your company's trajectory?
I had a new product fall in my lap from a cold email. So it seems small, and it was a lot of caps. It was a weird email, but it was a scientist. Now I understand meeting this person. I'm like, okay. But at the time it seemed like, and I'm lucky that it didn't just go straight to spam, but I called it like within 30 seconds of this email arriving, I'm like, what is this? Show me the data. Is this real? And it was a fully baked product, just boop, a gift, in my lap. And so that was pretty small, but turned out to be really big.
I think kind of the trajectory of product development, you're going to get a lot of information when you talk to people. And so when we started out, we were thinking about more life-threatening fungal infectious diseases, and that's what we were working towards. And wasn't ever really thinking about the idea of vaginal yeast infections, and I did not realize just how serious and what unmet medical need there was in that. And then to kind of learn more about, kind of the growth and then the push in women's health right now. So I'd say that was probably, conversations with individuals and kind of learning more about, the application of what we're doing and what kind of markets you can go into. Sometimes you might not be thinking about the first product, and then you get a lot of information that will kind of change your trajectory. So that's probably one of our biggest trajectory changes.
Yeah, ours is, it's funny, both of ours is in female health. So we license this technology where you stimulate the spleen through the ear, you cause platelet behavior to change, and you can form quicker, stronger clots. And so we were looking at surgical blood loss, traumatic blood loss, and somebody said, well, look at women with von Willebrand disease. They have heavy menstrual bleeding. And from a scientific standpoint, that's brilliant because you have a monthly event. You know when the bleed event's going to happen. You can use them as their own control. We went ahead and threw in cramp pain and all these other measurements and came back and changed these women's lives. They had a 55% reduction in blood loss, 50% reduction in cramp pain. I mean, like days back of their life out of bed. These are women who are borderline anemic, and we have an OBGYN on our board who's one of our investors, and he looked at me and goes, why aren't you doing this for all women immediately? And that was December, and we launched our pre-order for the product last week. So we have radically revolutionized the entire thing, and it was just this, I just needed a repeating bleed event that I could measure, and we're going to bring a really meaningful solution to the market.
Thanks. So we got a question from Diana about how did you know you were ready to bring on investors? And I'm going to broaden that a little bit because I'd also like the audience to hear how you decided how much money to raise early on. I mean, because you have to draw the line somewhere. I know you were joking about wanting to raise as much money as possible, but you got to kind of pick a number, pick a goal.
So it falls out of the model. If you have the right model, that's what Lisa always says. She's like, the model will tell us. And she tells me exact, and so the model tells us, okay, by third quarter, I'm gonna need X amount of money. Go do it, that's my job. And so Dan Powell, my board chair, told me, I have three roles, or three things to do in my job. And I hadn't ever simplified it like that. I said, your job is to hire the talent, set the strategy, and make sure there's money in the bank. And that's it. And I was like, oh, because I'm over here, I'm like we have like a little mascot that looks like a hairball, Harry the hairball, and I'm like, I should see if I can get some quotes on little hairball plushies. And then I think about what he said, and I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, that's not in the three. I can give that to somebody else.
I would say that you have to kind of look at your valuation and how much you're willing to give up in terms of ownership at any given point in time where your valuation is. Your valuation is going to go up when you meet different inflection points, and then you can think about that as being another opportunity to bring on capital. You could sometimes, be in a situation where your burn rate is going so fast and you're in a pinch and you need capital, and those are times that, I would say it's probably a good idea to always be raising capital, but you don't have to take capital. So if you know the interested parties, keep them kind of in your back pocket. You don't need to take money from them, but you know that if they were interested, and you can circle back to them when you might need it. So you're not ever in a situation where you're in a pinch, because it's human nature to take advantage of someone who's in a pinch. You're going to try to get the most out of any situation. And if you know that they're really needing it, you're going to try to squeeze them for as much as you can get. So I'd say always look for capital. Don't have to take it, but always be looking for capital so you're not in that pinch.
I think that's fantastic advice. I wish I had gotten that back in the day. So you start raising capital before you need it, you have conversations, and you have a Rolodex, and you tell them a round is coming. That would be ideal world. Doesn't always happen. But if you do that and set it, and you're emailing them once a quarter with updates and all, you've nurtured this. So when you are ready, I think your answer was perfect. You know, work with your CFO and raise it. In my experience, I've always needed more money than I started to raise. I've oversubscribed to every round, and I've run out of money quicker after I raised it. So I think you will most likely underestimate how much you need, and you will most likely burn more than you plan to, because that is the nature of a startup.
So, you know, before we go on to one of the other questions here, because I think it's fairly similar to one you've already answered, I wanted to ask a question in an area that I like to cover every time we do one of these panels, and that's about intellectual property, okay? So if you wouldn't mind briefly talking about your patent or your IP strategy at a basic level, and maybe talk about some lessons learned there, or things that you'd like to impart to this group of early stage
Well, I mean, I'll start with that. So we have a pretty extensive IP portfolio around what we're doing. We have a lot of IP that, you know, as I said, there's like only a certain number of things you can do with your burn rate and products you can develop, but you have other IP on other things you'd like to get moving on, and you hope, well, I get that inflection point, I can move on that. I'd say be very careful about how much you need to pick up at any given moment. Make sure it really is tied to exactly what you're working on at any given moment. Don't overextend. The other thing is, if there's other IP out there that is kind of related to what you're doing, try to pick that up, because it'll make you know, make what you're trying to develop stronger, so there's not going to be any additional competition in there. But IP, if you're a startup company, can start really costing a lot of money. It can add up in a hurry, really, really fast. Other thing is that, you know, the universities you're working with, make sure you kind of, you know, universities are in business to basically, you know, try and make sure that they get the best deal. You should also talk to other people about what you think are reasonable terms are, so you don't have to kind of go back and keep renegotiating IP deals with a university institution. You really want to get the best deal structure right out of the gate. So that way there's, you know, everybody's kind of on the same board. Make sure you negotiate milestones well with IP strategies if you're doing licensing agreements. There are reasonable milestones that kind of make them more business oriented and not so much you know, like clinically oriented. They should be tied to, I will raise a certain amount of money to get us to this level, or I'll have a deal structure by this time period. Those are more reasonable milestones, and kind of like typical when you see for therapeutics, you're going to get an IND by this, okay, or phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Those aren't realistic milestones for license agreements. That's kind of what I've learned after doing this for a while.
I don't understand patents. People keep trying to explain it to me, and I hate it. So I'll start from that. I got lucky. One of my partners is a patent genius. He is brilliant at it. He has sued people over his previous patents. So I kind of came at an advantage. So we have 10 patents in 6 years, fully issued in the U.S., plus all the international coverage. And all I can tell you is I had no idea it cost this much. My patent attorney's expenses now to prosecute these is like 10 grand a month at least. We have great coverage, but you got to think through. You only have certain time to file your international coverage. You only have certain file. You can do continuances. I'm way out of my league talking about this, just so you know, but you can do continuances that kind of link back to your original patent. We did that kind of cool. Our first patent in 2018 had all these, like, what I'll call hooks. And one of those hooks was, this could reduce inflammation in the lungs from a cytokine storm. And then COVID-19 hit, and then we filed a patent in 2020 and got approved in 2021 covering COVID-19. specifically. So it's like, and its patent coverage goes back to 2018. So I thought it looks like we caused COVID, since we have a 2018 patent on COVID. But yeah, I would say it is complicated. You need to think through it. You need to think through the life of it. You need to think through international expansion. And if you get a crazy partner that loves patents, they can run up the bill because we've gone so wide, because I got a COVID patent and I've never gone into COVID treatment. We kind of were, that was the year of taking advantage of anything to treat COVID. So I would say, but my one big advice that I've observed from afar is my partner has, we use Anthropic, and he is building all of his patents in AI now. And what used to take him months takes him weeks, and he is training it, and he loads up all the other patents to look at, so we understand our IP landscape. And so I will say the world of IP is changing so fast, and if you're not using AI, you will get beat. Sorry, I didn't mean that to sound so serious.
I don't think I'm using AI for patents. I don't know. I also don't know a ton about patents, but luckily my co-founder, she does. She's also worked at the Tech Transfer Office at University of Washington. So she pretty much created the bones of our licensing agreement, and then we just had kind of an attorney bless it at the end, and that saved us a lot of money. But I mean, there's some things you can't be prophetic about when you file a provisional. You file your PCT. Things change. Like, our device has gone through a lot of changes, and so right now we're in the process of beefing that up, expanding it, and we have to execute in the national offices. So we're up against a deadline, but then also things that I didn't know, being non-technical. I was about to present at a conference with some slides, and I just had a stray thought, maybe I should check with my attorney. He's like, I'm going to need all those slides, and we're going to put them in the patent application. It's like, before, especially since I think the US has a different rule about disclosing things publicly. In Europe, it's like instant. So if I disclosed it, it's that day I'm in hot water if it's not covered. So just kind of, if you don't know, then find people who know, and that's what I've done.
So this question continued to get voted up. I think you guys have answered pieces of this, but is there anything additional that's changed for you and your company that you didn't expect, some surprise that happened during your journey?
I wrote a petition to the FDA telling them they needed to remove wearable neuro devices from the market that were being sold as wellness devices. I'm a big old hypocrite now, so I never expected to. I'm a medical device guy. I've been in neuromodulation for 20 years, and I never expected to be in wellness. It's really interesting, and it's so fun. So when they laid off a bunch of people at the FDA, I was like, I don't care.
I didn't think I'd be back in consumer products. I thought I was out, and they pulled me back in. I was like, I'm the CEO of a medical device company. I'm a serious person, and I really had to learn. I never had to go through the FDA before, and I never had to. There's not really. It's more like trade secret in consumer products. It's not as much an IP portfolio, and so I spent 2 years really learning that and understanding the FDA process. I had a pre-sub, and then it was like, just kidding, back to consumer products, which is more fun anyway. So.
Yeah, I started my career in industry and then went back into academia. And then basically I was hoping to be able to just kind of do all the fun research work and, kind of have people to kind of move your products forward and, get licensing deals that pick up. Realize that no one's going to basically give your innovation the love that it needs more than the person that actually has innovated it. So we, now I'm basically, been doing this for a good solid 10 years now of development. I think we're kind of meeting the normal trajectory for drug development. So yeah, and still being able to maintain the work at the university. So it's something I didn't anticipate when I started out, but it's been a lot of fun.
Well, to wrap things up, ask a couple of somewhat self-serving questions, but I think it's important for the current crop and future crop of competitors to hear. Does anything stand out to you from back when you were in TNVC as a moment that you benefited from or your company benefited from?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a good environment to work in. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to Chris. Hey, Chris, I've run into this problem. Can you help? And he helps. It's always something that you don't really anticipate that you really do need kind of a big partner, and that's what the university can provide when you need some help with some stuff. The networking events have always been great, and opening up conversations with new people, some new directions. It's been a very, very nice environment to kind of work and develop what you're doing. It's been great.
Appreciate that, Jim. Jim, in addition to winning a bunch of money in our first year, Jim's come back to do a few of these panels and helped a lot behind the scenes. So you got to see all sides of this. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the networking part's great. Repeated exposure to groups like the Capital Factory, which we're a member of, and plugging into the ecosystem and being part of this, it just has been really cool. And I would say, even though this event is uniquely one of the best and special, doing multiples of these, you'll start to see each other. We'll start to see each other at these events. And I always just say, show up and magic happens. I mean, you just don't know who you're going to meet. And at the bar, I have a long story of just like being at one of these events and somebody randomly calls me, and the number of dominoes that have fallen to raise all the money we have, and it was so random. In fact, coming to this, I was so busy, and I noticed the email, and I was like, what is this? And I just applied for it. I didn't even really look into it. I thought it was just attending an event. I didn't know I was pitching. I know that sounds so conceited because I won. But then I showed up to a training meeting, and I had an 80-slide deck, and these people want to review my deck, and they're like, you're pitching. You need 6 slides. And it was really funny. So I was.
That's not a unique problem. We've had a few companies, maybe even a few this year, we had to have similar conversations about. So it's a good lesson learned.
Oh, and my lead investor of my seed round was watching streaming on Facebook when we won, and we hadn't signed the term sheet yet. So there's a really cool thing there, like we're betting on a winner. Like that was really, the accolades were really cool. And yeah.
Which reminds me to remind you, competitors, you're going to get a link on our social media. We highly encourage you to share that on your own social media in leading up to tomorrow's finals presentation. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think these guys covered most of it. The network, right? We found investors here, we found supporters, advisors, board members, and then also just the social exposure. I don't know whoever's doing your social this year. They did a really good job last year.
that table back there.
Yeah, it
Crystal
was
and
super
Ashley,
important because
our gong masters from earlier. Thank you.
They did a great job, and so that's where the guy with the product, the cold email, he's like, oh, I'm like, how did you find us? And he said, I saw it on some competition website. And then we found another large investor from Dallas, and the same thing. Usually I'm chasing investors, like, please, look at this weird lice thing. And they came to us, and they're like, we're really excited about your technology. I'm like, this is too good. You want to talk to me? And they're like, yeah, we saw you you were a TNVC winner. I'm like, ah. And so, I mean, it's like the ripple effects, it just kept helping.
Well, as we wrap up today, I wanted to give you a chance to cover anything that you don't think you feel like we covered. Any parting thoughts for the current crop of TNVC competitors or the future entrepreneurs that might be watching today? Anything additional you feel like you wish had been asked?
I would just say that you're here because you believe in what you're doing. You believe in what your product can do, what it can deliver. You're here because you think you can make money off your product, or otherwise you wouldn't be here doing this. I'd say that just kind of stick to what you believe in and just work hard. It's a process. You're going to hit some bumps in the road, and you're going to have some setbacks, but you're going to kind of pick up and keep moving forward. I wish everybody just kind of just keep that positive mindset and just keep the innovation going. That's what keeps this country going, and that's what kind of keeps us kind of moving forward. So you're doing great work.
I'll share personally, I get really, really, really nervous before these events. And before my pitch, I mean, I was scared to death. And I like public speaking, but I mean, it's nerve-wracking. I took a speech class a couple of years ago, and one of the things they said, the same part of your brain, the amygdala that processes fear, is telling you if you were in the water with a great white shark, it's making you just as scared as public speaking. Like that same part of your brain is what's making you nervous, and there's no great white shark in here. There's no sharks. You're in a friendly place. Breathe deep, and just, if you are somebody who's nervous before you speak, it's okay. There's no sharks in here.
I think if you're here, you've already won, right? In a lot of ways, you beat out so many other people. It's a great room to be in. Last year, I was a little bit sad when I saw one of the guys who didn't win, and I see him upset, and he threw his name tag in the trash before even the final reception. And I was like, no, I don't think that's the right way. I understand it. I understand that feeling. I want to throw this thing off, like or my name tag at work all the time. But I picked it out of the trash, and I was like, just come hang out, have a beer right after, because there's so much more than just being the top. I wasn't the number one. I was the number 3 last year. I was the bronze, but we actually won the most money. So it's like, I don't need to be number 1. I just need to be the top dollar. And also a book, also kind of delving into cognitive psychology, called Choke. It's by the lady who's running Dartmouth University, and she talks about what separates people who are just as talented, equally talented, but then some rise to the occasion, right, and get a 1600 on their SATs, and the others who choke, and why that is. And it sort of teaches you some tricks to trick your brain. So if you think that's something that affects you, I've found it helpful, and I hope I didn't choke today. So
That's awesome, Joanna. Dan, Jim, all three, thank you so much for taking the time to come back and join us here after your companies have gone so far. I know that this takes valuable time out of your schedule and your businesses. So on behalf of all the staff and the Texas A&M Innovation team, I want to thank you so much for coming back and imparting your wisdom on this group. Join me in thanking them, folks. So just a couple of logistical items I'll cover. You guys can go grab a drink if you'd like. Thank you again. If you wouldn't mind flipping to the transportation slide. So following this event, normally we would have a networking reception here, but we had the neat idea this year to do something off-site, give something a try. And want to encourage all of you to join us. Actually, you competitors, you don't have a choice. You have to join us. We got you as a captive audience, so at least one member of your team should hop on the bus and join us over there. But I'll also tell you, most of your sponsors that have come in for this 2-day event are going to be there tonight. Those type of folks you just heard from these panelists that they were interacting with that ended up in investing in their company, in some cases being on their board, they're all going to be there tonight. So this is an important and target-rich environment for you to come join us in. And it also happens to be at a really cool distillery, so the drinks will be flowing. It is an open bar, and we got some food for you as well. I do highly recommend that you take the bus. Parking's a little weird in downtown Bryan, at least for something quick, getting in and out. Our bus will take you right to the door. So if you're staying in the hotel, definitely take the bus, all right? We're gonna have a couple of buses picking up from right outside the door here where you came in, or if you'd like, run back across to the hotel and you can drop your stuff off either in your room or in your car, and another bus will be picking up right outside the hotel. We've told that bus to leave at about 5:15, so kind of keep an eye on your watches. That gives you about a half hour after we wrap up here. So no, not a lot of time to run and decompress. Come decompress with us with a cocktail in your hand here shortly. As far as a return trip, the buses are going to run all the way up until the event ends at 7:30. Uber is great here too if you decide to go out to dinner or continue the conversation afterwards in downtown Bryan. Uber is easy to take back to the A&M Hotel and Conference Center. So that's all I've got. I did want to remind everyone that We are going to be back here at 8:15 tomorrow morning for the formal part of the program, but does anybody have any questions about transportation since it's the first time we've done it this way? Any concerns? Certainly see one of our staff. We're going to hang out and make sure everybody gets the